I have three questions. I'll be very concise. What about the concept in the Bible in the New Testament, the law of sin in my members, the evil within the human heart? We haven't talked about that very much. Is this a first world discussion about flourishing and what's the good life? When I did Christian ministry in Africa, talk about pregnancy discrimination. There were women, Muslim women, that would walk for 3 days through the bush so they could have their babies in a hospital run by the Salvation Army where there were no doctors, there were midwives. And so it's very different when we look at this globally than our North American affluent lifestyle. Finally, is this discussion about balance or degree? I think we'd all agree that social needs production is better than military production, but would we have the society we have without a strong military? Thank you.
So I'll just make a quick point to, I think, your first example of whether this is a first world problem. Like, yes, this is absolutely a first world problem, whether we should have cell phones or not have cell phones. But I think, though, if you, look in the Bible and look at the social teaching of really all of Christianity, there are things that we just sort of think of as unalloyed goods, that, people should have sort of a right to life, that, it would be better if, we didn't die in childbirth, that people should have enough food. Those are really good things, and we can all agree on those. It's what comes next and what we assume should come next that I think we disagree on. And I'll speak not from my own experience, actually, but both of my parents are actually from Nigeria. My mom grew up very poor in a village and moved to the United States where we have a lot more stuff. And, obviously she's very grateful for this. There's a reason why she moved to the United States. But she is still willing to say, there are things missing here, like the community that we have in our village, the ability to spend time with each other and not worried about whether we're going to sort of get fired from this, that, or the other. Those were, beautiful and good and virtuous things that we have in lower supply, sometimes in more advanced economies. And yes, I never have a really good answer. The answer is always we have to decide, we have to balance.
I would say this is not a first world problem for two reasons. One, because everything we do has an effect that we don't get to see. A few years ago, some transnational mines went to Pope Francis, and they said, we know we have a really bad reputation. Mining industry has a really bad reputation. We want to improve it. So they said, create, believe it or not, theologians who will come together. We will open everything to them, and they can look at what we're doing, and they can then tell us what we're doing is wrong or right. I was part of one of those at, it's called the International Mineral Mining for Progress. I was part of one of those in Peru in a copper mine. And this was a good mine. They cared about the environment. They leveled a mountain. The trucks that they can use. But it's still the case that none of us in here want to live on the road where those 100 trucks every day pass by houses on a 100-mile journey to get the copper so that I can have some. Now, I know I'm implicated in this, right? We all are. But these are the conditions for the possibility of our existence. And those people who mine, they want those jobs. They want them. But they live in a camp. They do not have freedom. And they don't have democratic freedom. And Elizabeth Anderson's books on why corporations are basically communist governments of dictatorships, and you don't have democratic freedom. She was here last year. It's a very telling book. So we talk about, we want the corporation to be free. Corporations are mini dictatorships, mostly benevolent. I've worked for a few benevolent dictators, but there's no democratic processes there. So I think that's deeply problematic. My own interest in this subject matter came when I left Taylor University, which is Wheaton's poor cousin, conservative evangelical.
Did go there. So
no way. I might know them.
It's like the 5 people who went there.
Yeah. And I was a missionary in Honduras. I hadn't read Marx or Adam Smith, but there was a shrimp industry on the island where I was a minister, and every night I would take the women who cut up shrimp at the factory for 6, 8, 10 hours a day. Only job available to them, and they appreciated it. No benefits. They went home, and I would listen to their stories every night. And where did this go? Red Lobster. And it just struck me then, this is a weird world. Their kids are dying of malnutrition, and I buried their babies. And they're creating food for people who eat, as a luxury because we want to go out to Red Lobster. And it just, it hit me. It just hit me that's an issue that we have to keep before us. What are the conditions for the possibility of our existence? Can we look at them? And can we speak to them? So I'm not sure it's a first world problem.